Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. Grant, I beseech thee, Almighty God, that we, who for our evil deeds do worthily deserve to be punished, by the comfort of thy grace, may mercifully be relieved. Through Jesus Christ, thy Son, our Lord, who liveth and reigneth with thee in unity of the Holy Ghost, ever one God, world without end. Amen. So, we reach this second to last week of Lent. I'm not including Holy Week in this. Holy Week is something separate. This is also the second to last talk. I'm going to miss you so much. We're covering two books today. We're covering The Voyage of the Dawn Treader and The Silver Chair. I do profusely apologize. My copy of The Voyage of the Dawn Treader has been on loan for about 7 months now. And so I could not pull direct quotes from it. I'll have to rely on my memory, so if I misquote, I am sorry. And we'll move through it quickly, which I also am very sad about because it is a brilliant, brilliant book, but we'll focus on what we need to focus on. In the opening prayer that I just prayed, it was the prayer for this week of Lent, we asked to be relieved of our wretchedness and our filth. And me being me, you'll find no surprise, since I'm harsh and mean, I enjoy prayers like that because too many prayers we pray nowadays or hear over the YouTubes are very, very nice, very polite sounding. Oh God, you are good and you love us. Yay. Amen. And that's a time and a place for that. Those are good prayers. We find, in my opinion, far too often those are our only prayers. Again, it's not a bad prayer. When we focus too much on, oh, you love us, so we're good, we focus on the fact that we are concupiscible beings and therefore do bad. And so let us begin the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. A new character has been added. Peter and Susan are gone. They will never return to Narnia. They are gone. And so we have Lucy and Edmund off with their aunt, uncle, and beastly, horrendous cousin named Eustace Albertus Scrub. And he almost deserved it. This is the most beastly, dislikable, miserable character I've read of in any book in my life. He, is anyone in this room vegan? Okay, good. Basically, imagine the most progressive, hippie vegan you can imagine. That's kind of what he is. He's obsessed with these dietary supplements and preserving bugs on a needle, which technically isn't vegan, but he's just miserable. He doesn't do good things. He steals from people. He irks his cousins just because he can, because they're only guests, and he doesn't have to actually be nice to them. Would that I could. And so he starts mocking Edmund and Lucy when they're looking at a picture. They're alone in a side room looking at a beautiful picture of a ship on the ocean. They're like, oh, this is so lovely. It's such a beautiful picture. It looks almost Narnian. Oh, how I wish I was there. And Eustace comes in and starts mocking them for being orphans, which they aren't, but their parents are away, and so they're effectively orphans. And then starts mocking them for not being good enough art critics. Oh, it's a nice painting. That's your best opinion? That's your expert thoughts on the painting? Oh, you simple-minded fool. And then the painting bursts. The room fills with water, and they are suddenly in the middle of an ocean. Eustace is very, very confused, as much as any of us would be, because he's suddenly not in a room, he's in an ocean, and there's no room to be seen, and the ship from the painting is right by them. And so suddenly people jump out to rescue them, and lo and behold, we see Caspian the 10th. Prince Caspian from the last book, now known as King Caspian. And due to this book, King Caspian the Seafarer is his full title. They are rescued, put on this ship, and in discussion they find out the ship is on voyage to find the 7 lost lords, good friends of Caspian IX, King Caspian's father, who were exiled by Meres, the evil king from the last book. The shift of the stories, the goal of the stories has shifted. So with the first story, creation, wonderment. With the second story, discovery and rescue. But we have a mission. We have to go into the world and vanquish evil. And then the third one is the exact same thing. It's always the children entering the world to do something. Something in Narnia. We're not in Narnia. We're leaving Narnia. We're somewhere else. Now we're on mission. We have now been sent out. We're no longer in Narnia trying to purify it. That's our spiritual life. We're no longer working on that. Our spiritual life is more or less intact. So now we have to go do the evangelist thing and go to others. We have to go reclaim those who are lost. Eustace is just as miserable as he's always been, and actually more so, because suddenly there are giant talking animals. Reapy Cheep the mouse, in particular, is a torture to him. He can't stand this arrogant, flippant beast. And Eustace is very used to getting his way. And so first, he threatens to file a lawsuit against Caspian for kidnapping him, and then for not keeping him in a ship that's up to code, and also why it's not a proper ship like a cruise liner. He then tries to steal rations, including rations of water, which anyone who knows anything about naval protocol, especially the military ship, is grounds for death, especially during the times that Narnia is sort of set in more medieval-esque times. So he's doing all these horrible things with the excuse, oh, but that can't apply to me. Oh, well, I just had more water because I was feeling quite feverish. You wouldn't deny me an extra ration, would you? I didn't want to bother you, so I decided to help myself instead of waking you up in the middle of the night. How often we also rationalize what we do. I'm going to fast forward about several chapters, and most of this book, sadly, because I don't have it with me, and we have 2 books to get through. We reach an island that is later named Dragon Island. I will spend the majority of my focus of the Dawn Treader here. They are restocking supplies, getting more water, getting any fruits, and see if there's any wild boars or whatnot they can take to restore their diminished supplies. And Eustace, miserable, awful Eustace, says, oh, well, I don't want to get underfoot. I'll leave and wait for you to finish up, and then I'll come back and get on the boat again. And so while he's going, he finds basically what every single person who goes hiking in the woods secretly hopes to find, a cave full of gold and jewels and all manner of precious things, and he's amazed. Yes, there's the corpse of a dragon nearby, but it's dead, so who cares? So he gets into the gold and is delighting in his newfound wealth and says, you know what? It will take them a while to restock. I'll take a nice nap here amongst my lovely riches. And so he falls into a deep sleep, and when he awakens, he gets up and goes to a small pool nearby to wash himself, and he is afraid, because staring back at him is the face of a great dragon. He starts trying to flee from the dragon and finds that everywhere he goes, he can hear its breathing. He can hear the wings of it trying to fly, and suddenly he realizes, oh, mercy, I have been turned into a dragon by some enchantment. Eustace is no longer Eustace. He is a dragon. And so he goes back to the other Narnians, but very, very cautiously, lest they attack him. And through a manner of attempting to dialogue, they figure out who he is, because Eustace has been missing for many, many hours, and this is a dragon that understands speech, and so it's something enchanted. And they eventually ask him, well, were you a man? And he nods, and they say, oh, you wouldn't happen to be Eustace, would you? And he nods again, and he starts to weep. In fairness, I mean, as much as Eustace is a despicable character, we kind of all would if we wake up one day and we're a completely different thing, especially something so hideous as a dragon. If I woke up and I was a rabbit, I'd be like, cool. I'll be like fed and loved and like not have to do anything till I die. But people don't generally like dragons. And so he's weeping these bitter, self-pitying still tears of, oh, woe is me. Of course it was I who am so unlucky. I who all manner of horrid things happen. If only my cousins hadn't somehow tricked me into coming to this horrid place. Why did it have to be me? And yet, during the next 2 chapters, there is a change in Eustace. Because he can no longer offer anyone anything. He also no longer can speak. Speak from experience, you learn a lot when you shut up. And so he's forced to suffer the kindness of others. And I phrase it this way for a reason. We are mankind is a very, very proud species. It's specifically the men of mankind. We like to be self-sufficient. We don't like needing help from others. A person took me to dinner not long ago, and it was very, very nice of them. And I thanked them and said, oh, don't worry. And then went on a litany of what they've liked that I've done here. And don't get me wrong, I'm happy with what I've done here. And I plan to do much more. I hate when people mention it. I despise it. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, thanks. Dinner was lovely. Can you please stop? I don't want you to say these things. I don't want you to be nice. One, because my ego is big enough, but also because I'll become complacent and stop doing good things because I've done enough. But then his wife made me shut up and suffer being nice. Eustace has to suffer the kindness of these Narnians who he's acted horribly towards. He's made the voyage hellish for them. He has stolen, he has lied. And yet they're all trying to find a way for him to continue on the voyage with them. They don't want to leave him behind. And so the night before they set off, in the middle of the night, he gets up and he leaves. He goes into the mountains. And the book says, not with any of the self-pity or pride of the old Eustace, but purely out of a genuine love, saying, I don't want you to have to suffer putting up with a dragon. Not even me, just I don't want you to have to deal with feeding me and balancing the ship properly. I want your voyage to be easy. And so I will spend the rest of my life here alone for your betterment, for your good. And as he goes into the woods, he's suddenly aware. He's aware of a different presence amongst him. He starts becoming a bit afraid because even though he's a dragon, he's not used to being a dragon. So he's afraid. And he calls out, who is there? And back echoes a voice from a speaker, yet unseen, saying, you must wash. He looks down, there's a beautiful crystalline pool of water near him. And he says, oh, it would be lovely to sit and bathe. As he starts going forward, he sees his reflection. And he starts to cringe interiorly and weep again. And then the voice speaks again, you must undress. He's like, I'm a dragon. What are you talking about? He says, you must undress. He says, oh, I'm a reptilian figure. I guess I can shed the scales. And so he pulls off his skin and goes to get into the water, but he's still a dragon. And he starts crying out, can I remove this skin as well? And continually, I think 3 or 4 times, he pulls off and sheds the reptilian skin that he's in. And then he starts weeping once again, saying, oh, it's no use. I still look just as disfigured and horrid as I did before. And then out steps the bearer of the voice, a great lion who says, you must let me do it. And when the dragon submits to the lion, Aslan pulls off the skin of the dragon, but not only skin, great chunks of flesh came with it, and it was painful. And when he was finished, there lay Eustace, a boy, once again. And Aslan picks him up and places him in the pool of water and bathes him, draws him out of the water, and says, "Here are clothes, put them on and go back to the Narnians." I will spend the rest of my analysis of the Dawn Treader on this alone, and then we'll move on to the Silver Chair. We see in Eustace a conversion, a very, very beautiful conversion. He starts off a horrendous, terrible figure who, whenever a sentence in the book starts off, the first time you read it starts off, "And Eustace said," you're like, I don't even want to hear about you. You're not even a character who's fun to hate. You're just annoying. There's always like that one character in something that's like, everyone hates them. It's sort of like the point of the character, like the redheaded sister in Downton Abbey. No one likes her. There's no point to her. If no one else watches that show, I feel very, very awkward now. And so Eustace isn't even that. He's just so contemptible that no one even enjoys hating him. You just despise when he's on the page. Then all of a sudden, while he's a dragon, he goes through this transformation. Physically, of course, but also interiorly, which is the important one. He goes through a transformation saying, I wish to be helpful. I wish to actually, do something and add to society. I'm sick of taking. And more so than that, there's a beauty. This isn't really said in the book, but there's a beauty in the transformation of Eustace of, even though he's contemptible, those who symbolize the church loved him. Even though he had done everything that rationally we would say, "You no longer deserve my pity or my love. In case something bad happened to you, well, get over it. I don't feel sorry for you at all." They took pity on him, a merciful kindness. And they tended to him. Not only tended to him, certain figures, specifically actually, Reepicheep, the contemptible mouse who Eustace hated, becomes a very close friend to Eustace during this time, telling him stories and staying up with him late into the night. He has shown kindness by all those whom he hated most. That's, first off, the love that we are meant very, very, very difficultly to show the world. To, as Christians, say, I hate what you've done. I despise what you have done. But I don't despise you. There's something worthwhile in you, something desirable in you, by nature of simply what you are, a creature made in the image of God. And so that love is to be showed them, especially when they don't deserve it. The reason for this being, it was shown to us, and continually is shown to us, when we don't. So we see the healing power of God through his church to Eustace. And so he says, I desire to be like you. I desire to be virtuous. I desire to love as you have loved me. And so I will leave. I will spend the rest of my life, and dragons live a very long time, alone. Because you showed me how to love, and I wish to reciprocate it. But now we've reached the extent of human reason. So human reason can, without a doubt, prove that there is a God, and can, without a doubt, prove the Christian God. This is shown by Thomas Aquinas through his 5 proofs. I encourage you to read them if you haven't. They are a lovely read. Confusing, but lovely. And so we get to the extent of human reason. There is good out there. I desire the good. I desire to be virtuous, and so I will pursue it. You can't pursue the good without pursuing goodness himself. Or better yet, theologically speaking, without goodness himself pursuing you. So if you recall the talk that we had 2 weeks ago now on the horse and his boy, Aslan's first line in it is, I am one who has waited long for you. Well, he's waited long because he first called out. Every prayer we utter, every good that we do, is a response to God first calling out to us. And so Eustace is responding to this primordial call to be virtuous and good, and he's pursuing it, but doesn't know who or what he's pursuing yet. And then he reaches the point where all of us have to submit to God's power when he says, I can't change. I have shed my skin once, twice, thrice. I cannot change. I've interiorly changed and I've reached a certain point, but I know there's more, and I cannot achieve it. Which is when we hear the voice of God say, you must let me change you. No, you're right, you can't do this. No, you're right, you are weak and feeble. You are human. You must let me change you through my strength, through my power. And it hurts. It hurts immensely. It is a kind of death. That's why you get to, if you ever read the poem, The Journey of the Magi, it's a beautiful poem. In it, they say, we saw birth. Of course, there was evidence, we had no doubt. There was Christ, the child. But there was also a death that happened. Because of this death, I now should be glad of another death, meaning I spiritually died. I was born again in the renewing waters and in faith in God. And now the other death, the main death that we think of, I'm not afraid of anymore. Actually, I'm looking forward to it. So we see this death personified in Eustace by the physical body of the dragon being torn apart by the image of God and becoming Eustace again. He who was consumed by the dragon, set freed by the lion. There's a reason a dragon was chosen. It is the ancient symbol of the devil. So, there is I don't like most contemporary music, and I don't like most Christian music because I find it cheesy. But there's an artist who I love very, very much named Sarah Sparks. I encourage you to look her up. She has an album called Into the Lantern Waste. It is an album about Narnia. It is my favorite album of all time. And in it is my favorite song of all time called Eustace Scrub. And it's just beautiful. And in it, she basically writes this scene from the point of view of Eustace. And she says, I've seen my own reflection. I know the pain I am in. I've been a lonely wretch, and I can't get out of it. And then we meet the lion. We meet Aslan. He says, as he looked through my eyes at the things I despised, I was pierced by his gaze. We are the ones who hold on to the shambles and shackles of our sin. We go to confession. God casts it aside. He has no recollection of it. It's gone. And yet we hold on to it. Now, there's a good element of that and a bad element, I guess. Remember what you've done and don't do it again. But don't focus on it is the thing. And yet we often do. We hold on to all these horrible things that we used to be and that we have done. They're the things that we despise about ourselves. And so we look at God and we say, how do you love me? Look at all that I am. Look at all that I've done. Look at what I am. This deformed, miserable creature. And he looks back and says, all I see is what I made. All I see is also your potential, what I have called you to be. Let me restore you to it. And so, as we enter into this final week of Lent, this Passion Tide, which is actually the most penitential part of the entire season of Lent, when the statuary of the churches are traditionally covered to show an even greater desolation. We don't even have the comfort of our lovely artwork. Let him pull you out and restore you to what we are meant to be, what he created us to be. Also, during this time when all the statues are covered, invite your Protestant friends and say, what statues? What are you talking about? I don't see any statues. It's just the priest. We're not idolaters, which we aren't, but they don't know that. Okay. There's So much more I could cover with Dawn Treader, and it hurts me that I won't, mainly because I really want to cover Silver Chair, because it's a really, really good book. But quick side note about Dawn Treader, there is an island where with a bunch of monopods later called Duffelpods. Um, and I didn't know this until the other day when I was talking with a buddy of mine, and he says they're mentioned in St. Augustine's book, The City of God, as a hybrid species like the Nephilim, which is like a mix between demons and man, uh, as some like horrendous demonic being. And I find it hilarious that Lewis just like slips them in as like an obstinate, annoying, childlike creature that's just sort of making trouble for everybody. And knowing that the majority of his readers probably never read City of God. I own the book. I still haven't read it, so don't think I'm holding you going like, I remember this part of the book. It's on my shelf, but I haven't read it. But a friend of mine had, and he told me the chapter and verse, and it was just great. Anyway, the Silver Chair. Well, yeah, the Silver Chair. So, Edmund and Lucy can no longer return to Narnia. They too have sort of aged out, if you will, of the returning gang. Because it's a children's story. We can have 20-year-olds in children's stories, unless they're already in Narnia. They can't go into Narnia. So, we do still see Eustace. You know, Eustace, who we hated, like the really annoying character who, like the majority of the book, we didn't even like him on the page. Well, now he's the protagonist, and he's actually really great. We're like, oh, hey, Eustace. I remember this guy. I loved this guy. So it's the beginning of the school year. The Dawn Treader happens over the summer. Now the school term has begun again, and Eustace is different. Eustace finds this one girl, her name is Jill, she's a lovely lass, sitting alone and crying because they have been bullying her. This is a book written in 2025. We would have no idea if this was one person or two people or many people. We would have no idea. This was written in proper times when they still meant more than one person. And so it's a group of bullies that are considered interesting subjects of observation by the very progressive headmistress. I could make a joke about putting women in charge of things, but I won't. And so we find Jill crying because she's been bullied. Something awful. And Eustace goes and he says, Jill, I'm so sorry. Why are you crying? What's gone wrong? And she lashes at him saying, you're no better than they are. You get away from me. And he says, well, okay, whoa. I know I was awful last year, but look what I've done this year. I've changed. I've obviously changed. I'm not part of the bully group. They've actually been bullying me too. And she says, you're right. I'm sorry. Speaking of which, why have you changed? Again, we've left the story of being called to Narnia and converting. We've now entered the realm of going forth from Narnia to convert. We should be people, as Catholics, who the rest of the world looks at and says, why are you like this? Not in a negative way, and infection's a big thing, but you know. You will meet some people who say those exact same words with like a face, like, why are you like this? But most people should look at you and say, there is something different. There's something not normal. And it's not like a bad not normal. There's something good there. Why are you more patient than other people? Why are you a bit more generous? Why do you hold such strong views that you actually seem to be able to back up? Not just some random hot take that you have because you feel like it. Why are you different? So we see this with Jill. She says, why are you different? What happened? He said, well, I don't think you'd believe me. She says, I have no friends. Look at me. What do I have to lose? Go ahead. It's like, well, okay. And he tells her about Narnia. Tells her about what happened. And she starts making a face, and he says, oh, I see you don't believe me. She says, no. It's not that I don't. But even if I did, what's the point of you telling me? So we can't even go there. He says, well, perhaps we can. The great one, he said I might be able to come back one day. Well, I'd like to do that. Maybe we can. She says, well, how? He says, well, we can call out to him. And she, much like very stereotypical, middle school girl, is like, ah, seance. Like, we'll draw circles on the ground, do incantations. And he's like, I think he'd be offended by that. Let's not do that. She's like, oh. Well, then what should we do? He says, well, first we should face the east, quick plug for ad orientem masses. And secondly, we should probably just ask him. And so they sit there, and he says, they just simply call out the name of Aslan. Suddenly, as they're finishing calling out his name, the group of bullies, them, have shown up. They start calling out, saying, oh, come back. Now that you're dating, we have so much more fun with you. And so they start running, and while they're running, they suddenly see a door in the wall, and it's unlocked. They open up, and they jump out, and all of a sudden they're in a bright, very clear mountaintop. And they're there, and Jill starts, showing off how she's not afraid of heights, and a bit of a struggle with Eustace trying to coax her back into a more sensible part of the ledge. Eustace falls to his death. We never see Eustace. I'm kidding. So Eustace falls, and the lion runs out and leans over the ledge and is just sort of chilling there for a minute, just like hanging off the ledge. Then it stands up and walks away. And so Jill is just like freaking out, like, okay, Eustace is dead, I'm alone, and there's a lion. I don't know what to do. But she follows him because she'd rather see the lion than not see it. So she's following it and gets to a stream, starts drinking from the stream, and she becomes very thirsty. And so we have the interaction between the lion and Jill. If I run away, it'll be after me in a moment, thought Jill. And if I go on, I shall run straight into its mouth. Anyway, she couldn't have moved if she had tried, and she couldn't take her eyes off it. How long this lasted, she could not be sure. It seemed like hours. And the thirst became so bad that she almost felt she would not mind being eaten by the lion if only she could be sure of getting a mouthful of water first. If you are thirsty, you may drink. They were the first words she had heard since Scrub had spoken to her on the edge of the cliff. For a second she stared here and there, wondering who had spoken. Then the voice again said, if you are thirsty, come and drink. And she remembered what Scrub had said about animals talking in that other world. And she realized it was the lion speaking. Anyway, she had seen its lips move this time. It was a deeper, wilder, and stronger, a sort of heavy, golden voice. It did not make her any less frightened than she had been before, but it made her frightened in a rather different way. Are you not thirsty? Said the lion. Oh, well, sir, I'm dying of thirst. Then drink. Well, may I... would you mind going away while I do? The lion answered this only by a look and a very low growl. The delicious, rippling noise of the stream was driving her nearly frantic. Will you promise not to do anything to me if I do come? I make no promise. Jill was very thirsty now that, without noticing it, she had come a step nearer. Do you eat girls? I have swallowed up girls and boys, women and men, kings and emperors, cities and realms, said the lion. It didn't say this as if it were boasting, nor as if it were sorry, nor as if it were angry. It simply said it. Well, then I daren't come and drink. Then you will die of thirst. Oh dear, well, I suppose I could go look for another stream. There is no other stream. It never occurred to Jill to disbelieve the lion. No one who had seen his stern face could do that, and her mind suddenly made itself up. It was the worst thing she had ever had to do. But she went forward to the stream, knelt down, and began scooping up water in her hand. It was the coldest, most refreshing water she had ever tasted. "Come here," said the lion. "Human child, where is the boy?" "He fell over the cliff." "Sir, didn't know what else to call him." "How did he come to do that, human child?" "He's trying to stop me from falling, sir." "Why were you so near the edge, human child?" "I was showing off, sir." "That is a very good answer, human child. Do so no more. And now the boy is safe. I have blown him to Narnia on my breath. But your task will be all the harder because of what you have done." Here we get to the very, very important part of this. This is all, I'm going to expound all this in a second, but here's just, the beautiful part of it. "What task, sir?" "The task for which I called you and him here out of your own world." "It's mistaking me for someone else," she thought. She didn't dare to tell the lion this, though she felt things would get into a dreadful muddle unless she did. "Speak your thought, human child." "I was wondering, could there be some mistake? Because nobody called me in scrub here, you know. It was we who asked to come here. Scrub that we were to call to somebody. It was a name I wouldn't know. Perhaps the somebody would let us in. And we did, and then we found the open door." "You would not have called to me unless I had been calling to you." "Then you are the somebody, sir?" "I am." So to go through all of this very, very, very wonderfully, Jill's immense pride is blunted in a single moment by the lion. She doesn't have any fear. She can be on the ledge. Nothing wrong will happen. Oh gosh, Eustace is dead. Now she's afraid and thirsty. And here's the beauty of it. So what she says, and again, Lewis's entire thing is words. So whatever words he uses, take them literally and analyze them carefully. She does not say to the lion, "Do you promise not to harm me? Do you promise not to eat me? Do you promise not to kill me?" What she says is, "Do you promise not to do anything to me if I come?" The stream is the life-giving water of God, mentioned in the Gospel of John. It is the source of the Christian verity, the life that we live as Christians, guarded by the lion. And so very often, we do implicitly say to God, "Well, can I enjoy all the nice things about Christianity and not have to do anything? God, do you promise not to do anything to me if I follow you? Can I stay the same as I am now, but, go to heaven? Do you promise, sir, not to do anything to me if I do come?" To which the lion replies, "I make no promises. Of course I won't." And the next fear comes, "Oh, well, you don't eat people like me, though." It's like, "Oh, well, no, I have. Absolutely, I have. There is immense fear that you should have in me." And yet the fear that she has shifts when he speaks. It's a different kind of fear. We should be terrified of God. But not in a cowering, hide under rocks when he shows up kind of way. It's the type of fear that we should have, that those of us who had fathers growing up recall from that father, especially when we're a little toddler. Your father, when you're 3 years old, is the most powerful, mighty man on earth, which I will enjoy for 3 years while my children are weaker than I am, where I can actually pick them up and throw them onto the other couch playfully and, without having to work out, because I don't do that. And so there's a fear that we have of our fathers, but not like a trepidation. Our fathers, I hope, didn't come into the room and we would hide under the table. It's the type of thing. It's like, oh no, I know you have the capacity for this, and so I fear invoking your wrath, but I'm not afraid of you. In fact, it's something that we have as Americans when it comes to the power of our country, our military might. We're like, oh yeah, no, it's a terrifying power the U.S. controls, but I'm happy they're not going to use it against me. Our enemies should be afraid because it is a terrifying power. So the devil is and ought to be afraid of the power of the God who stands with us, beholds, and commands, and issues on behalf of us. So it's a different kind of fear. And so she plucks up her courage and she drinks and she's refreshed. And then she's given a task to rescue a lost prince. Very, very classic fairy tale trope. This is the son of Caspian X, who is on his deathbed. He's an old man now, and he is dying. And his son, confounded. What is his son's name? I want to say Rillian. I think it's Rillian. I'm just going to say Rillian. If I'm wrong, I'll post something in the YouTube video at the bottom saying I was wrong. His name's this. So Rillian, the prince, the son of Caspian X, the seafarer, is missing, has been for quite some time. A great serpent killed his mother. And so what he did was he went on a mission to find this great serpent and slay it. A few months later, a friend of the king's went with Rillian on his daily rides, saying, well, it's been so long, I doubt the serpent's even going to be found at this point. It's an animal. He says, oh, I've forgotten about that. Well, then why do you continue to ride out? And they go to where his mother was bitten and killed by this serpent. And when they're there, a beautiful, beautiful woman appears. Again, so many jokes that I'm not going to make. Appears in a green dress, described in the story as green as poison. And he is enthralled by her. He's longing for her. And so it seems relatively harmless enough. And so the king's friend says nothing, says, okay, he's found a girl who's kind of odd, but okay. And then one day, the prince doesn't come back from his rides. And from that day on, they've never seen him, or never found him. As you can probably surmise, the serpent and the queen are probably the witch, the lady, probably the same person. It's not confirmed yet, so go with the narrative, but like it's probably the same person because it's a bit too coincidental. And so they're meant to find him. So he's alive. That's better news than Narnia's had for decades. So he's alive, but they need to find him. And they're given tenets to repeat often. The signs of Aslan that will guide them to the prince without a hitch. They very often forget them. They are, however, given a guide through Narnia. Puddleglum the Marshwiggle. My goodness, this is the most delightful, wonderful character in any of the books because he's the most pessimistic being I've ever read about, and it's just a delight because it's like yeah, it's great. Like he makes like a really, really nice fire one night, like cooks like a delicious dinner. They're like, this is delicious. He's like, oh, you're just being nice. I shouldn't wonder. It's probably not cooked all the way through and we'll all wake up poisoned with something from it. I shouldn't wonder. Oh, I'm sure all manner of horrid things will happen. Probably wake up in the night and it'll be raining. And it's just, he's the most pessimistic, sad person ever. But what's funny is, for his species, he's optimistic. So it's just really fun, anything that he says. Now, moving a little bit forward, they keep forgetting the tenets. They miss basically every single sign, and they end up forfeiting. They meet a lovely lady on the way who says, "Oh, what's your mission?" Like, "Oh, well, let's just say we're on a mission." She's like, "Oh, well, you seem tired and hungry and cold." Like, "Oh, we are. We very, very much are." She says, "Oh, well, there's a giant city not far from here. Go and say the Queen of the Vale has sent you for their autumn feast." And they're like, "Oh, thank you so much. This is the best thing that's ever happened to us." They get to the giant's kingdom. They're like, the Lady of the Vale has sent us to be here for the feast. And they're like, oh, great, come on in. And so after a day or two of eating a lot, like strange portions of food, they find out one day that they are eating a Narnian stag. Now, for Narnians, this is like akin to cannibalism. Like, imagine like you're sitting out, like, Ruby Tuesday, and you suddenly hear someone talking about how like, the steak you're eating was harvested from like a dude, and you're like, wait a minute, like, this is not okay. This is a horrible thing. That's exactly the reaction they had. So like, okay, we need to leave. We need to get out of here. While they're plotting their escape, they find a cookbook. And there's a section called Man, the traditional meal of the autumn feast. And so they're like, oh, we definitely have to leave, but not before Puddleglum finds a recipe for Marshwiggle, which basically says they are unfit for consumption, and he's very, very offended. But they eventually escape and end up falling underground. They don't know where they are, they can't see where they are. And while they're there, they meet some dark, shadowy soldiers. And they're talking with them and basically say, oh, we need to bring you to the Queen of Underland. As they're going through the tunnels and such, they see all these different things. And one of them is a great old man, massive, like bigger than a giant, laying down sleeping and snoring. And they're like, oh, who's that? He says, oh, well, that is Father Time. He will awake at the end of the world. They're like, okay. And they move on. It's just there's a big room with Father Time. And they're going. But every time they see something, the captain of the guard says, many fall down, but few return to the sunlit lands. And it becomes very, very ominous as they go. It's basically the only thing he says. They're called the Earthmen. And they end up reaching a place where the queen is supposed to be. The queen is away. And they hear a voice, almost like, you ever like heard someone talk? And there's nothing really wrong with how he looks or how he speaks. But just when they're talking, you're like, there's something not right with you. There's just something off. Maybe I'm just too judgmental. That's possible. But this guy's like that. They're like, hey, there's just something not right about you. But they're talking with him. And they tell their stories. They're like, oh, well, there's no prince here. I'm very sorry. In fact, me and my lady, who will soon be my wife, are the only humans here. And when we are wed, we will wage war on the upper world and conquer it for ourselves. And they're like, oh, well, good for you, I guess. I don't know. But they're trying to figure out what's going on. But what happened is the reason they went underground was that they saw one of the signs. They got one. Literally, the entire book, they get one sign. And it's on the earth, there's something written that says, under me. And they're like, oh, I have to go underground. Great. So they tell this man, this manic, odd man, that. And he starts laughing, a very manic, disturbing sound. And he says, oh, you fools! That was part of a great soliloquy on an old kingdom. It said, though now I lie and sleep, there was once a time when all men were under me. He was a great conquering king. Don't ask why I know this. I've read this book too often. And he says, so how funny it is that you think those words were written for you. Oh, you mistaken, foolish people. And they start to despair, saying, oh no, we've lost this sign as well. The final sign, by the way, is, you will know the prince, for he will ask you something in the name of Aslan. And so, while they're talking, they say, well, have you ever heard of Narnia? It's like, no. Have you ever heard of Caspian? No. Ever heard of Aslan? No. But can you do me a favor? And they're like, oh yeah, sure. He says, well, I'm a bewitched man. I suffer from a horrid illness. I have to be bound at night to this great silver chair. Name of the book. This great silver chair I have to be bound to. And I go mad at night. And I will implore you with all manners of riches and promises and threats to untie me. You mustn't. For the sake of my sanity, you mustn't. And they're like, okay, cool. So they're sort of chilling. Earthmen come in and tie him to the chair. The silver chair. The chair's silver. The name of the book. And so then they leave, and he goes into his incantations. He starts, writhing and, as one going to an epileptic seizure, if you will. And suddenly he collapses and looks up, and he sees them. He says, "Oh, thank God! Thank goodness, untie me. And they're like, yeah, no, we were told not to. It's like, no. You see, I'm in my right mind now. Now is when I'm in my right mind. They're like, yeah, he said you'd say that. You said you'd say that. We're not going to untie you. He's like, no, please. You are not. And this is the best scene. You are not of this land, nor have you any allegiance to their wicked queen. Now, please, I beg you, in the name of Aslan, untie me. And they're like, who? And they're like, Aslan, like, you know who he is? He says, yes, by the lion. Now, please, my sword is over there. Untie me. And so they do. And he takes the sword from him, and he goes and he destroys the silver chair. And looks at them, he says, I thank you ever so much. I have not known anything for these past years. Are you of Narnia? He says, well, yes, I'm Eustace. He says, not the Eustace that my father sailed with. They're like, you're who? Wait, what? He's like, yeah. Is he well? And they're like, well, we've been sent to find you. I'm so sorry. Your father is dying, possibly already dead. He says, well, that is the result of my folly. I thank you for rescuing me and for restoring me to my full self. Then the door opens, and in walks, of course, the queen. And she, through a gritted teeth smile, says, oh, hello. What happened to your chair? He says, oh, my dear lady, you'll be delighted to find out I am freed of that horrid illness which you tried to heal me from so often. These lovely, loyal Narnians have saved me. She's like, oh, did they? Yay, I'm so happy. Not, said the liar. And so the prince basically says, well, okay, we're gonna leave now. So goodbye. She's like, oh, why would you want to leave? Tell me, what do you mean return to Narnia? Return to where exactly? Just read these books as many times as you can. So she puts a powder into the fire that's burning in the hearth, and suddenly sort of a haze falls over our heroes. She starts saying, what is this Narnia? And they say, oh, well, don't you know, we saw you there. Well, where exactly was it? Oh, well, it's up there. In the ceiling? No, not up there. Higher. It's a world outside this world. Oh, is it? In advance, I might go like a few minutes over tonight. I'm going to try not to. I'm really going to try not to, but I might. Not out of a desire to make you suffer, but just because. And so I was saying, no, don't you understand? It's a beautiful world. There are things like flowers. What are flowers? Oh, well, there's nothing here that you would understand the flowers. Oh, we're underground. There's nothing here like it. It's all rock and pebble. I start saying, well, see, it's just make-believe. It's a lovely world that you're pretending, but it's just not real. And Puddleglum sort of shines through as a brilliant hero in this one moment. Puddleglum is still fighting hard. I don't rightly know what you mean by a world, he said, talking like a man who hasn't had enough air. But you can play that fiddle till your fingers drop off. You can throw as much stuff in the fireplace as you wish, but you won't make me forget Narnia and the whole overworld as well. We'll never see it again, I shouldn't wonder. You may have blotted it out and turned it dark like this for all I know. Nothing more likely. But I know I was there once. I've seen the sky full of stars. I've seen the sun coming up from the sea in a morning and sinking behind the mountains at night. And I've seen him up in the bright midday sky when I couldn't look at him for brightness. Why, there it is, cries the prince. Of course, the blessing of Aslan be upon this honest marsh-prickle. We've all been dreaming. How could we have forgotten it? Of course, we've all seen the sun. And then the witch says, what is this sun you speak of? They say, oh, You see that candle there? Yes. Well, it's like that, but bigger and better and hangs in the sky. Well, how does it hang in the sky? I don't know, but it's there. Probably something by the power of Aslan. As they speak his name, she plucks a sour note. She goes, what is this creature you mentioned? And they say, well, Aslan, the great lion. Oh, what's a lion? Oh, you know what a cat is? Well, yes. Oh, he's like a cat, but bigger and fiercer with a mane, but not a mane like a horse, a different kind of mane. She says this beautiful, beautiful thing, which I will comment on at length, but not too much length, saying, oh, well, you see, this world is even more made up now than it was a moment ago. You think of all these great, better versions of things that are already here. You see a candle, so you want a bigger, better candle. You're going to call it the sun. Oh, you see a cat, you want a bigger and better cat, so you're going to call it a lion. But you see, it's all just made up. None of it's real. And Puddleglum again shines forth, saying, if this is true, and I shouldn't wonder that it is, perhaps we did all make it up. Perhaps it is all a lie. But this pretend world is a heck of a lot better than your real one. It's quite embarrassing for your real world. And so I am off to search the Underland for Narnia. Even if there is no Narnia to find, I will live as a Narnian, even if it was all simply in my head. And then just for your own closure, the witch then becomes the big serpent again, and she's killed. So we win. Okay, so hence the cover of the book. If you can't see it, he's killing the serpent. Okay, so breathe for a minute. The spell is broken. The queen is dead. Yay! The witch of the West is dead. And so I want to focus on what happened here. So we will hear often when we think of the Christian life, it's too good to be true. We made it up. And that's the atheistic, especially the modern scientific atheistic argument of it's not real, you just want it to be. It's comforting to have your sky daddy who loves you so much and will lather blessings upon you. Not my words, it's their words. It's nice to have this being who, is just perfect. Good for you, but he's not real. He's a myth. Well, one, he's a mythter, male. But secondly, he's not a myth. This is one of the things that converted Lewis through the discussions with J.R.R. Tolkien, mainly. They discussed myth at length. Christianity, yes, it falls into many of the general mythos of the world and the different theisms that are evolved from myths. But he is not a myth. It is the myth, the archetype of the myth made real. That's why all the other myths seem to have something in common with this one. They took it from ours. No other myth speaks to the heart and soul of man, as well as the human condition of mankind, as well as the myth of Jesus Christ. It's the beautiful thing about him. It actually happened. He actually walked the earth. He died on the cross. And yes, he did indeed come back. He's not a myth. He's the myth. We creatures desire to create worlds and fantasies in our minds because we ourselves are created. We desire to love because we ourselves are loved. And we desire to have a Savior because we were first saved. There's nothing that we can ever offer or do that isn't first given and imprinted on us by the Creator, by God. And so I actually discussed this scene from this book at length with a professor friend of mine, saying, even if the nihilists were right and nothing matters and everything's fake, wouldn't it be better to live as a Christian? It just makes more sense. That's the argument Lewis makes here, saying, one, this is real, but even if it weren't, it is so much better than anything any other ideology or theism could ever hope to offer. And so we ought to live as Catholics, even if there is no God to reward us, because it is simply better. Now, of course, we can say that there is no better if God doesn't exist, and you're right, but there is a better, which proves that God exists. Again, read Aquinas. So, we've now returned to Narnia. Eustace and Jo return to their schoolyard with Caspian the 10th, actually. Caspian the 10th is, he's now dead, so he's young again and strong again, and he sees Eustace in his more ghostly form, and he's like, oh, hello, and it's wonderful to see you again. Thank you for rescuing my son. How have things been? And then he says, please, I've always wanted to see your world. Might I have just a few moments? And Aslan says, yes, but only for retribution. I give you and Eustace swords, and I give Jill a riding crop. When you see the bullies at your school, I give you 5 minutes. Use the flat edge of your sword on them. But other than that, go ahead. And so every bullied person, fantasy comes true, they get to beat up your bully. And they do. A proper inquisition into the school is launched because all the students are ranting about people with swords and a giant lion, and that's obviously not happening in the center of London. So something's not right there. And so the school got a lot better as well. Okay, we have closure. Now focused on Puddleglum's statement one last time. The made-up things are a great deal more important than the real ones, are his exact words. So let's accept the false premise that there is no God. Therefore, nothing matters. Put simply, we can go into the big theological and philosophical tangent, but just take my word for it. If God doesn't exist, nothing matters. Do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. And yet, even the people who accept this false premise will tell you, well, no, there's still things that you shouldn't do. You shouldn't kill people. Bestiality is still revolting. Incest isn't really a good thing either. There's still things that are bad. Why? Why are they? You got that from us. You got morality from us. And then you left the source and expected to keep it. A criticism of God is, if there's a God, why does evil happen? A simple response is, if there is no God, why does good happen? How can we say that there is good? How can we say that there is evil if there is no metaphysical culmination of what it is? In short, all that is good is of God. All that is evil is just lacking God. It's like a hole. It's not like we define it, but it's defined by nothingness. Where there's privation of goodness, there is evil. But we inherently also judge things in gradations of perfection. For someone who's never eaten chicken before in their life, can eat a very, very dried out, poorly seasoned chicken and go, it's not that good. And they eat another chicken, it's like well made and stuff. They're like, this is really good. This is a lot better than that chicken. Why? Why is it better? Something is pulling it towards gradations of perfection. It goes from something base and less good to something greater. Why? What is this? Presumably, if everything is going towards a source of better and better and better, what is this ultimate culmination of perfection? God. And so these made up things like trivial morality moves you. It's not simply saying this chicken is better than this chicken, it's saying this action is better than this action. Draws you towards the source. Draws you back to that stream that we began at, up where the top of the mountain, where the air is clear and your mind is enlightened. Brought back to the river of God. And so, as we enter into this final week, into this Passion Tide of Lent, as we prepare to enter into the final talk, which I put more effort into this final talk than the other ones. So please do come back next week. So that's my favorite Narnian book, Last Battle. Live like Narnians, even if there is not one for us to go home to one day, which, spoiler alert, you'll find out next week that there is. So come back and hear all about it. I've kept you about 5 minutes longer than I usually do, so enjoy your evening.